We timed it perfectly with the music
That
ending.
worked out really well that time. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of our live stream of our Wicked Opportunities podcast. And you know, Yvette,
And Frank.
no surprises here.
It's very funny how you did that.
Thank
Didn't
you.
take you but 30 seconds to do
No,
it. That's
well,
good.
it's in my craw. It's in my
That's
craw.
it. Is it out of your craw now? Not even
It's
close.
all good. It's
It's
all
all
good.
good. All right. Yeah, I'm excited. This is when this
Craw.
that's a very southern term. It's
It
a good
is
question.
in my craw.
In your craw. What is that? Is it something we could talk about like on YouTube or like craw? Is it?
I don't know.
It's in my craw.
It's like it got in my heart or spirit or whatever.
Oh,
It's in
really?
my craw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't let go of it. It's my craw. Crawl daddy.
Jesus.
Okay, enough goofiness.
No, no,
We're goofy. That's what we do.
no, no, no. It's all good.
Goofy seriousness, goofy seriousness. But we are so happy that all of you have joined us and hope that you enjoy some of our goofiness sometimes. I think laughter and goofiness and the witty banter, as you like to call it, is important for us being, well, you always say that this is a place where we can cut loose.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously this is authentic to who we are and our brand. But it's also like intentional. Uh we purposely we try to make ourselves super accessible to people and not sort of hold ourselves at a distance because we believe that, the future and change is already scary enough for people. And like when you intimidate them, or try to intimidate them, as people sometimes do, maybe inadvertently, that's not helpful.
Yep.
So I think humor, I mean, we're genuinely just funny
I was going
people.
to say, did you know that one of the American founding politicians, Thomas Jefferson, was actually an eloquent individual, but that he was from Virginia. Remember, the play Virginia, Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah, yeah.
And he actually would, when he went back to talk to his constituents back home, he would talk real Southern and he would, he would do it on purpose to relate to them,
Interesting.
but it's not who he really was.
Yeah.
This is who we really are.
Yeah. We're super
This
funny
is who
and
we really are. So.
I know you didn't spend much time, if any, directly employed by like corporate America.
Thank you, sweet baby.
I was in corporate America for a decade and a half. And it's kind of
I do
interesting
appreciate
that
that.
I made it that far, I think in part because I was at Disney and I was sort of backstage, sort of speaking, but even in finance, it's kind of funny. one of my first jobs that I interviewed for, I've shared this story before, was for GE, General Electric, for their finance department because my dad was in finance at GE
That's right.
and he got me an interview and I flew to Louisville and I didn't get the job. And the feedback that was given, not to me, because why would they give me feedback, but to
Right.
my dad, was that I smiled too
See,
much.
it all lines up. It's like they could not only did you smile too much for corporate America, but they couldn't tell a woman that,
Yeah.
because you were the problem to
I think
begin
back then they
with.
probably could
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
So, anywho, we smile a lot around here. We cry also quite a bit.
By the way, it's so good to have you all here just because we love that you're with us and we love that you put stuff in the chat and have a separate conversation. Now I know it
Okay.
means I never would have
The
looked that up.
crop.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you.
Interesting. That is
Yes, it's the
so.
craw, which refers to the crop or preliminary stomach of a
So
fowl,
that was
and it
not in
gets
the live stream
into
description.
with lasting annoyance, irritation, and hard feelings.
Yeah.
That describes my life.
And in case y'all don't know, there is a delay. I think it's like a minute-ish. So
30
if
seconds or so, yeah.
you put something in the chat and it's like later when we're talking about it, it's weird. Just know that
Yeah.
it's a little bit delayed.
So hi Marcy, hi Becky, Romano.
This
It's
is
so great to have
romp
all of you in
room,
here. Yes.
romper room, a little
The
romper
old
room.
romper room. I tell that story so many times with my sister to go to romper room. And they were like, romper stomper, who do we see today? And it's Cindy. And when they said her name, she cried and ran off set. And that was her romper room. That was her
That's a
romper
lot
room
of
career.
pressure.
That was her romper
It's a
room
lot of
career.
pressure. A
So.
lot of pressure. So yeah, so this forum, our Wicked Opportunities live stream, is part of our Wicked Opportunities umbrella brand, which includes our podcast. It's actually a program. It's trend cards. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life. This Wicked Opportunities. It's really about, really embracing complexity and understanding that the issue is not our complex environment that actually affords us incredible opportunities, but rather it's outdated mindsets that if we could update with our foresight operating system, we'd all be much better off. So this year, the year of our Lord Savior 2025, we have decided to go back a little bit in time and revisit some of our most popular podcast series. Our most popular podcast collection was probably our first one. We peaked early. And in that podcast collection,
Or you
we
could imagine that, since COVID, we've been stuck in like the super long now or
yeah,
something.
yes.
It's like it never
It's the
ends.
long now. It's a different way of looking at the long now.
So those podcasts were really just done in the now.
In the now, yeah, it does
And
feel
now we can't seem to escape. So
so those 7 months of podcasts were, 4 episodes each month, were surrounding the article that you wrote in Rotman Management. We actually have a framed copy. You should have signed it before we framed
oh
it.
yeah, it's over there at the other end of the
Yeah.
studio. Yeah.
And around your 7 shifts in the age of opportunity. And so back then in 2020, 2021, every month we took one of the shifts and we used foresight tools to showcase how we can move from a wicked problem to a wicked opportunity space. And what's so interesting is that here we are years later, still tackling some of the same issues,
Yeah.
and some of them are bigger and others are new. And it's quite amazing how many of the lessons and the material that we shared back then is completely applicable. It's evergreen, honestly. It's evergreen. And I remember when we released this, which was I think the third month in the series, which was analysis paralysis
Mm.
to co-creative emergence. It was the wicked problem of analysis paralysis to the wicked opportunity of co-creative emergence. It was one of the most popular ones of
Yeah.
the series. I
I
think
think because people feel like they're paralyzed by this
we tackled this.
atomization of
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
It's like everything's got to be so minute. And when you do that, you miss the bigger picture.
Yeah. And I think that whether it's uncertainty, and our lack or inability to really or be equipped with accepting uncertainty,
Yeah.
and combined with this like fetish love affair that we have with data,
Yes.
makes it so that even in organizations like Disney, we don't actually move forward. And it can be really, really frustrating, even if you're working within that organizational context. And certainly if you're a futurist trying to hang your shingle, it's incredibly frustrating sometimes to work against those prevailing systems that seem to honor sort of this quantitative data above all else. And since I think 2020, 2021, we've actually seen ripples of the impact of this problem further into the foresight field. We were talking about how this particular analysis paralysis is now seeping into how people define foresight and foresight effort. So we want to talk about that
Yeah.
today. Just because we have the capability, we have the power here. Let me just,
Hi, Rod. How are you?
I wanted to share the little map because it's like my favorite thing.
It is so great.
Let me
And
see.
as you're bringing that up,
Yeah.
as Dr. Joseph Voros was saying to me last night,
Oh yeah, you didn't tell me. You guys had
um,
a little chat.
I had posted an article yesterday saying, it's like Monbiot was it was a clip probably from years ago where he was saying, hey, look, this present system that we're stuck in is just no help to us whatsoever. And we're really going to have to, this is Monbiot's words. He's like, we're going to have to kill this system off.
Mm.
There's no working with this system. You can kiss that goodbye. It's like this system of modernity, coloniality, capitalistic consumption, extractive and exploitation. Again, Monbiot's words, he was saying, there has to be something new. And Dr. Voris jumped in and he was like, I thought, oh gosh, here he comes to correct me. But he was saying, no, this is why we founded the Swinburne program. The first course you had to go through was this, basically this system sucks and we need a new one.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons they shut the program down.
But good times, good
Yeah.
time.
So he was like, but we keep going on. We've done it different ways. And I said, yeah, Peter and I do the Future Pod X. I know that you guys were, started the program
Yeah.
together. He goes, I thought my ears were burning while I was over here working on changing systems globally,
So
in
Joey
Indiana.
V.
Yeah.
Joey V and you are besties now.
He likes that I meme him up all the time.
Yeah.
So, Future's cone, Joey V.
Joey
He
V.
would not appreciate us calling him Joey V.
You
Although I did hear that at the Swinburne program, they all had names like the wolf and the bear and stuff like that. So maybe he would, I don't know what that was all about.
I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah. Maybe,
However,
what? Joseph Forrest probably has like a big, tramp stamp
of the cone,
of the cone of possibilities.
I was gonna say, if I thought about getting a tattoo, it would need to be something like the cone of possibilities. So this was the map that we created back in the day when we first talked about this topic of analysis paralysis to co-creative emergence. By the way, this map and the 4 podcasts are curated for you in the Thrive course that is on my TFSX. It's free to members of the collective. So if you're not already a member of the collective, it's just $165 to join us. You get access to not only the Thrive in Uncertainty course, which curates all of these podcasts and materials,
Yeah.
but the Dragonfly Journey, which is
Mm.
Frank's baby that he leads a community of practice every couple of months. So if you're not a member of the collective, for $165 a year, you get both of those courses. You also get a toolkit and all kinds of great stuff. So join us on the collective if you haven't. But
Gabriel said that the tattoo is the ladder of inference.
Okay.
Which I like better because
Awesome.
it leads, where's
Yes.
the ladder lead?
That's true. Yeah, and you could do it like,
like
narrowing.
skinnier and
It's
skinnier.
narrowing. Okay, this is a fun game. I need everybody in the chat to drop if they were going to get a foresight tattoo, what would it be?
Or what tattoo does Joseph Voris have?
Oh, and where would you put it? Like, where is the ladder going, Gabriel, is the question. So
She could do some interesting stuff with futures wheels as well, I think.
So you've dropped so many names already. We are how many minutes into this? 12 minutes in. And if someone's playing Foresight Guru bingo or a drinking game, they're passed out already.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned Sohel, and we honor Sohel all the time here. If you're not familiar,
he was another one of the Swinburne people.
Yeah. So each of the weeks we used a different tool, and we use CLA every first week. I love thinking about analysis paralysis, which I didn't notice this before. The artist who, by the way, The artist that makes this is Alice Eady
Yeah,
out of Australia.
she's great.
And we must have mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, or someone in this first week, the Titanic,
Yeah,
and she's got us pictured on I
yeah.
think that's us.
I'm Leonardo
You've
DiCaprio.
got nice
She gave me a
hair.
little bit of hair, but it's
Yeah.
gray at
So is
least.
that me and you on the
It
Titanic?
looks very
King of the
you
World?
because if you look in the middle, you
Yeah, yeah,
see
yeah,
you, and there you
yeah,
are again with the yellow
yeah,
dress.
yeah.
This
Anyway,
time, of course, I don't have the hair like
yeah,
those.
yeah.
I don't.
So
Okay.
one of the first things that we did and that we want to highlight is that, when we're talking about analysis paralysis is a wicked problem, and looking to tackle that, unpack that, unlearn that using foresight, and see what is really the transformative opportunity that's waiting to emerge, which we know is co-creative emergence, right? Because we've already heard all of the podcasts. We know where we're headed,
Of
right?
course.
One of the things that we knew we wanted to talk about today, which we treat these live streams as sort of a highlight reel of the original podcast series, but
Mhm.
also we want to bring in like even more current
Of
things.
course.
Because ultimately, what this has shown me, even just 3 months into this experiment here
Mhm.
in 2025, what this has shown me is the fact that honestly, having foresight as your operating system is the key here. Because if you truly embodied foresight and you started this path back in 2020 with us, or 2021, all of these lessons are completely applicable to today's environment. You could replace everything we're talking about today with AI and the way that it's being
Oh,
utilized, and it would you
yeah.
would reach the same conclusions that we're going to reach and that we
Or
reached
even
3 years ago.
maybe even
Strong,
stronger.
stronger,
Yeah.
stronger. So
Yeah.
our goal with these live streams
As
is
a matter of fact, I think the if you look on the extreme left-hand
yeah,
side, and the first thing you see is the gentleman with data in his
yeah,
eyes and the
yeah,
tool, that's every AI consultant
yeah.
on
No, it's
LinkedIn.
true. It's true. So if you haven't had a chance to re-listen to these 4 weeks, I encourage you to do that. I think it just makes this live stream even more exciting and fun and community laden. Our goal would be for you to watch the next or listen to the next four before our next opportunity next month and
Sure.
we'll chat a little bit about that. But
And
if you
especially
haven't,
if you're
that's
doing the
okay.
course, if you're doing the course, you'll be
Yeah.
doing that for
And
sure.
yeah, it lays it out for you. But if you're not, that's fine. We're still making these live streams obviously relevant regardless of whether you've listened. But I do want to talk about epistemic uncertainty and ontological unpredictability. If you've been around TFSX for more than 35 seconds, you've heard us say these multisyllabic words. And don't be intimidated by them. We'll unpack them if you've never heard us talk about them. You're in for a treat,
You're in for a treat.
because I think this is one of the core elements of this need to shift from analysis paralysis, from this data quant centric perspective, to the idea of co-creative emergence. This idea that, we have the agency to see and work alongside what's trying to emerge, the transformational realities that are trying to emerge. The future is not something that we're trying to peer around a corner to see, or we're trying to follow trends as a breadcrumb to identify. The future is something that's emergent, and that we can create based on our decisions in the present. So,
I think we're hearing more and more people saying this. And no knock, of course, at all on the people who have done so much hard work over the decades to lay the foundation for strong foresight today. Um, I'm not one of those, but I'm sort of on the fringe of one of those. I'm a little bit older now, but we've got people that are in their 70s and 80s still working hard in foresight who laid this all out. But I'm going to also say that the newcomers to the field, and especially the younger generation that's coming in, are seeing foresight more. This is one of the things we could be very encouraged by, is that those shifts that we laid out 5 years ago or so or longer may not be in the news or something you're seeing happen in governments around the world, like in a big way, but it is happening at the grassroots and especially among those that are younger in the foresight field in a big way.
mhm.
As a matter of fact, Keely Adler and I were having this conversation the other day, and of course, she's one of the ones that runs Radar, and she and I were both agreeing that there's a shift afoot in the field from what we might call epistemic uncertainty to ontological unpredictability. And another way to sort of put this is the regenerative developer and designer Daniel Christian Wall points out, not something that he created, but something that he's reiterating, points out in his book, that futures really needs to embrace and embody the idea of not just thinking, but feeling, sensing, and intuiting. And that's so foreign to us, and it's so sad that it is, because it shouldn't be. It's so natural.
No.
But this is one of the things we're talking about is analysis paralysis is based on the idea that feeling, sensing, and intuiting is not only a foreign thing, but it's just not useful. And the truth of the matter is, it's more useful than the analysis is, in the sense of, let me define what I mean by that, in the sense of atomizing and extracting and siloing and segmenting and separating and just looking through a microscope at the world as if that's going to reveal to us the larger realities that are unfolding. So this brings me back to epistemic uncertainty and ontological unpredictability again, because the futurist Ilka Tuomi, who created these phrases, said, that largely in the futures field, and not just in the futures field, in every field probably.
Yes, for sure.
Not probably. We had this idea that if we could just get a little bit more data.
We're so close.
Yeah, I mean, we've got reams, but if, we need one more ream.
Oh, well, this is why we've put AI on a platform.
That's exactly right. It's one of the reasons why, and it's one of the big reasons
right,
why.
Is our absolute, idolization
it's idolization
of this analysis in the data, because obviously AI can do it faster and better than the human if your goal is the analysis, which we know is false, by the way. Also,
I love this train that you're on right now, because it's like the reason that we've moved technology, and specifically AI in this case, as the penultimate technology, from pedestal to throne.
Yes.
And whenever we move technology from pedestal to throne, we know that we've effed up.
Yeah.
Because technology, by its very definition, is supposed to be a helpmate to all of us, which is people, planet, kin, cosmos, not technology itself, right? Birds have technologies. They build nests. Dolphins blow bubbles to communicate. Technology is pervasive throughout the cosmos, but it's not supposed to be on the throne. It's supposed to be a pedestal. It's supposed to be a helpmate. And when we've moved that, then we've idolized it. And the reason we idolize that is because we have gotten to a misanthropic place of believing that the goal of humans is to dataize, to atomize, to analyze, and not to be messy, as Jim Priscilli says, mucky, itchy, in the swamp. Those are just realities. That's where we find all the goodness.
Yeah.
But we hate that.
Yeah.
And we hate it because of the systems that we're in. Because historically, Graeber, Wingrove, other people have shown that this is not how humans always lived. We actually have sort of gone backwards to a great degree. And as much as we think that we've advanced, and maybe we have advanced in some ways, we've gone backwards in many other ways.
Yeah.
And so this brings me back to epistemic uncertainty. If we can just gather more data, and like you said, we think that AI will ultimately do that for us. So F humans, get them out of the way, promote AI, and we'll get the ultimate epistemic uncertainty.
When we first recorded this, it was like big data, thick data, and it's still those things, but now it would definitely be AI if we were recording it. Yeah. And this idea that somehow the past, because once you have a piece of data about something, it's by definition the past, that somehow the past is the greatest illuminator of the future. Is not only wrong, it's super dangerous actually to have that perspective, and to think that the future is another answer that we just need to uncover. It's the proverbial answer key in the back of the book. If we just could get access to it, we would know. And
I love that Becky says that, could it also be intrinsic incentives versus extrinsic incentives.
Yeah.
And when we make the world into object orientation, rather than process orientation, which includes what's going on inside of us. Again, back to Daniel Christian Wall, feeling, intuiting, sensing. Those are internal things that have a bearing on the external. And it's not external versus internal. I know that Becky didn't mean it that way anyway. But it's why Jonathan Rowson says, I don't like to say that we're in a polycrisis because that focuses on the things and put
Yeah.
this remain it keeps us locked into crisis mindset. That doesn't mean there's not a crisis, but it
Yeah.
keeps us locked into a crisis mindset, which is what colonial modernity wants.
Yeah.
It's always thriving for you to be in crisis.
Yeah.
Instead of a heart change and a soul change. Rilke, the German poet said, the future enters into us in order to transform us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, I got you off track a little bit, but the epistemic uncertainty is about that object orientation,
Yes.
focusing on objects. And actually, when you focus on trends as data,
Yeah.
you lose sight of what's trying to emerge and what wants to unfold. And you're not feeling and sensing, intuiting anymore, even though you think you are. You can swear up and down that you are, and you're not because you're object focused. And when we're object focused, we know we've lost that sensing, intuiting feeling of the process that's trying to unfold what wants to emerge. And
Yeah.
that's the ontological unpredictability.
Yeah, it strikes me as, we had a little bit of a almost like a renaissance, a resurgence, if you will, of interest in foresight, during and right after the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? Because people were like, had their oh shit moment. Like I was super uncertain. I was caught unaware. I don't like to be surprised. People don't like to be surprised. Businesses don't like to be surprised. Governments don't like to be surprised, even though there's many points to say that they shouldn't have been surprised by it, but that's not the point. Um, and so we had a lot of folks, get really interested in foresight. And whenever that happens, whenever there's, a lot of popularity and interest in a field that's been around for a while, but new interest and sort of resurgence, and there's going to be some sort of adopting of the practices and changing of the practices and you know
New entrants come to the field and they're just like, I don't know what this is, but I think I know what it is. Let me
yeah,
apply
let
it
me
when I'm
apply it to
already
what I do.
doing
Yes, yes.
it.
And so yesterday when we were
Makes total sense.
when we were preparing for this live stream, hopefully you all had a chance to join us for the Global Foresight Advisory Council, the GFAC live that we did
Good.
earlier this month with Sonia. And if you haven't, check it out. It's still available on my TFSX for free, just with an account. You don't even need to be a subscriber. But one of the things that she talked about in each of her vignettes was just talking about the, ancestral and the way that indigenous people would look at some of these things and emergence in particular.
Yeah, especially all
The
the
wayfinders.
wayfinders of the Polynesian
Yes,
culture.
yes.
Many do it, of course. The American natives are,
Yeah,
actually the word Indian does mean native,
yeah,
but they're not Native Americans. They're natives to Turtle Island. We called it America,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Same thing.
yeah,
Same thing. It's wayfinding,
yeah.
which
So,
is really like the future unfolds as you walk it.
yes,
Instead of like, I'm going to extrapolate what it is because of this technology that Elon Musk made
right.
to direct the future the way he wants it to
Yeah.
turn out.
She talked about, and if you're a fan of Disney films, you saw this play out in Moana, where, the grandmother, and even ultimately Moana is able to sort of navigate and
Yeah, the
part.
spirit of the grandmother sort of gets into her.
Yeah, and she's got her hand in the water, and that's in part how they're navigating. And so bringing this back to the field of foresight, I sort of I'm speculating that in part what happened around the time that we were recording these podcasts and the interest of foresight increased. We were very excited about that, but like that, sometimes it gets co-opted and used in different ways.
That's right.
And I think, folks weren't really comfortable with the idea of emergence in the way that it's meant to be applied. And so they took this idea of like, I'm going to put my hand in the water. So that concept became lists of trends.
Let
And
me put my hand in the stream of trends.
yeah. And let me just pick out the top 10 and it's
See what I come up with.
yeah.
So like in my crawl.
Yeah. Circle back. It's the datification of a field, and I get it because like I worked at Disney and I tried to do this at Disney and I get it. I totally get it that it feels like in order to make this square peg fit in a round hole,
Yes.
you have to sort of, literally cut corners.
It is the ongoing, I don't know what the right word is. It's not enigma, but that word's in my mind.
Yeah.
The ongoing mystery of futures to work out, right?
Yeah.
Is that like at its core, futures thinking and foresight is not just think about the future, because we always say the way you think about the future directly impacts the actions you take today. It's about transforming in the present.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to get the tools, capacities, models, data, strategies, whatever that we need for the present from the present. As Einstein said, the problems that we have today cannot be solved with the same level of consciousness that
Right.
created them. You
Right.
can't get it inside the box. The call's coming from inside the house. You need a
Yeah.
call coming from outside the house.
Yeah.
But we don't leave that call for 10 years from now. It's
Yeah.
like it's about bringing it into today.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for us to flip the switch of what futures is really trying to do is saying we need different models to run organizations on.
Yeah.
We need different ways to look at governance. We need to, but instead, because it's running on this model, you're like, how can I see the future? Epistemic uncertainty. If I could just get more data, how can I see it still running the same program?
Yeah. And well, even worse, how do I see the future enough, the breadcrumbs, the trends, so that I can make sure that whatever I'm doing today will be successful? Like it is like a doubling down of like, how do I maintain the status quo? How do I just add a little bit of this or that to my current system so I can keep making money, so I can keep extracting?
It's to maintain relevance.
Yeah.
To maintain the dominant narrative.
Yeah.
But it looks cool
Yeah.
because you're like, look at me, I'm being futury, but really you're just trying to maintain relevance of the dominant narrative.
Yeah. I will say
I might have to navigate.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
But don't feel discouraged. I think
No,
I
that's
think
the point.
sometimes
Yeah.
that, we have these conversations and this is obviously a safe space. We don't want you to feel discouraged. And we're just talking about the reality. And so we're facing, we're all facing this reality of where, our current systems and structures, work on hindsight. They work on data, they value different things. And that's not how the true world, nature, cosmos works. And so, but foresight is the answer to be able to do this work. But it's true foresight. It's really mindset shifts. It's not just outsourcing your future to a list of trends or, getting someone to create a set of scenarios. It's really doing the work.
I know you're going to go into this really quick. I'm going to make this short.
Yeah.
So the ontological unpredictability piece, I just want to say one sentence on it. If epistemic's gathering more data to reinforce our relevance and our dominant narrative, then the ontological isn't that just the future is changing through trends or data, but the nature of the future is changing. You can only sense and feel into it right?
Yes.
And that goes back to new models and those kinds of things. I know that Nicole already probably put this, but I didn't see it. And so but that is user error for me. I'm sure it's already up there. That I actually did a brief video, maybe 10 minutes on this in my Meditations and Transformations series that you can go back and look at object orientation versus process futuring. And it talks about the epistemic uncertainty and that kind of thing. I wanted to say something else, but I'm going to let you go into this. I know you had this great article that you pulled up this past
Well,
week.
it's just so funny because what day is today? Today's
the 28th or something like
okay.
that.
So just a few days ago, you know what? I have the power. I can share the screen. Nicole will drop in the chat as well, the link. This is Fast Company, which to be honest, I didn't even know Fast Company was still publishing. So that's news to me.
They are.
Can I make this bigger? No. I can make it bigger. Maybe nobody needs it bigger but me.
You're going to tell them about it anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is from Fast Company. It's entitled Why Your Leadership Team Needs Creatives, Not Just Strategists. The future of business won't be managed into being. It will be imagined into being. So I just thought it was super timely. I'll highlight some of the pieces that I think are relevant. And again, I share this because, again, I don't think you all need this evidence, but the fact is that these are issues that are ongoing. And we're not alone as futurists in highlighting the need for this emergent thinking and this more qualitative perspective and the concern around what we're doing and how we're sort of enamored with data.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to this as a former finance professional. So I totally get it, but I've seen how easy it is to persuade people with data. We make it sound like data is this objective thing.
Ah,
Just like we make it sound like AI is some objective factual thing. Neither is true. And you can
not even remotely.
not even remotely.
Yeah.
And that's the danger is that we can use AI just like any other technology to support what we're doing. What we're seeing, however, is that we're bowing down to AI, just like we've bowed down to data and analytics. And
It's really not great.
we've we've given up our agency.
Yeah.
And that's when we know things are really going the wrong way, is when we don't have agency in the decisions that we're making, the future that we're creating, that you're in danger, girl, is all I'm going to say
Yeah.
about that.
Yesterday we were talking about, it's the day before the live stream. So we're like, hey, we talked about this a month ago. Let's talk about this briefly again before we jump on tomorrow so that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And you went on this great uh rant. It was great though. It was a rant, but it was great. About the incestuous nature of AI.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think that, a really quick thought about that is relates to what you're already saying, because it's like it's just reiterating data over and over again. And as you always say, data is always about the past, and AI is the data about the past
Yeah.
supercharged.
Yeah.
And it's not abductive, it's not liminal, it's not interconnected, it's not emergent, it's not vibrant, it's not alive,
Yeah.
right? So I just think that's a really important thing for us to think about as we're thinking about really moving from analysis paralysis to co-creative emergence, the collective, connective, cooperative, co-creative futures that we're building through kinship futuring, because it's only in relational emergence, the spaces in between those ecotonic spaces, where the future emerges as it wants to emerge rather than what we're trying to force to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this article, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I just want to highlight a few things. It talks about how, traditionally corporate leadership has been dominated by analytical prowess. The way that you sort of ascended to higher ranks is through meticulous spreadsheets, precise forecasts, detailed execution plans. We acknowledge vision, but only when it had a really good roadmap. But according to Fast Company in this article, this paradigm is shifting. Again, I love this phrase of emotional complexity. I think that's interesting. But acknowledging that linear strategies aren't sufficient. We've known this for a while. And most impactful leaders can envision new futures, cultivate emotional connections, exactly what you were saying, the relational piece,
That's right.
and distill complexity into relatable narratives. Okay, the new generation of leader are going to be architects of meaning.
Oh, that's great. I
They
love
won't
that
be just
phrase.
strategists, but creatives. I knew you were going to
Our
love this.
futurists, architects of meaning,
Yes,
instead of
absolutely.
architects of data, are architects of trends.
So lots of great rationale here. It talks about how, employees aren't connected, and employees don't feel like their employer treats them as whole individuals. We know this. The emotional infrastructure of leadership is faltering. Efficiency alone is no longer the
It
answer.
never was.
It never was, but finally someone's catching up into it. So the last piece I'm going to share here is this talk about how creative leaders are different. They transcend problem solving. They understand the emotional ripple effects of decisions. Futures wheels, anyone?
Mm.
And then the storytelling. So this last paragraph I'll share here. In uncertain times, strategy provides direction, but storytelling fosters alignment. Data offers explanation, but design inspires action. These leaders treat organizational culture as a canvas, viewing each initiative as an opportunity for meaning making. So I just wanted to share this article again, very, very current, timely article, especially for what we're talking about
And it
today.
never hurts to have Fast Company back us up.
Here's the deal. At the end of the day, we get it.
Maybe it
It
does.
could feel isolating. It could feel like you're the only ones talking about this. And while I love the thought leaders that you often refer to,
Yes.
they may not, have the sort of the
Popular
pulse.
zeitgeist reach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And so,
You don't
but
see Nora Bateson and Dougal Hine and Jonathan Rowson being published in Fast Company.
yeah, but again, that this is part of what we offer as a bridge, I think, in the field is
They're freaking popular. But I
Yeah.
think the more just generalized zeitgeist, it's great to see an arc like this reaching people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're trying to, as a firm, continue to elevate the field and provide those insights, but also the bridge to make it accessible and practical for people as well. So I think this was a good example of that.
that's a great example. I love that article, and I love this architects of meaning. I think we could, again, how do you define meaning? And I really believe that the way that this article is trying to at least point towards is that meaning is not about understanding data more. It's something deeper. And it
Hmm.
goes back to that. Am I focused on objects? Where is AI going now that it's been introduced to me and had nothing to do, it came from a source that's not us, it's one or it's them.
Yeah.
And instead, it's making meaning is through collective, connective, cooperative, and co-creative feeling, sensing, intuiting. And so that co-creative emergence, or as Nora Bateson would say, the elements that are bubbling beneath the surface, not the ones that are already on the surface, have more potential. What's under the surface bubbling has more potential than what's on the surface.
Yeah.
Benita Roy says it a different way. She says we're so fixated on complex adaptive systems. In other words, the core of what we're in is complex, and how do we adapt to it? And she's like, screw that. Complex potential states that are on the periphery of the system are loaded with more potential than what's in the system. And if we can break away from this H1 environment, the complex adaptive systems, and understand complex potential states, then we'll understand what wants to emerge and what can come is more loaded than what we have.
I feel like I should have paid attention more in physics because I feel like there was a lesson there that an object, that is in the potential state
Yeah.
does have more energy stored
Yeah.
than the one that's released it to sort of,
Yes, and the potential state
yeah.
has more energy. I'm sure
See,
that's where
it's all coming
Benita
back
is
to me.
pulling from.
It's all coming back to me
Benita
now.
was a scientist before she became basically a philosopher mystic now.
Uh,
And I love seeing more and more people who were like, I was trained in chemistry and now I'm into,
I love it.
philosophy.
Love it.
Because I just think that, we're seeing that it's just not coming from a weird place. It's coming from, a biological, a psychological, and also, yes, a sacred not being angels, but sacred being like having meaning.
Yeah.
Your meaning is sacredness, so.
To bring it back to TikTok, which, we usually have to at least once.
Strong. That was oh God, just pulled my neck right there. Ow.
So,
Sacredness TikTok. Oh,
so
oh.
no, but let me explain.
It's got such a crick in the neck.
In your craw. Let me explain the TikTok thing. Because have you seen one of the latest memes is I forgot this was the whole point. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that
yeah.
sounds fun.
People do like, a video of like them just enjoying their family or enjoying the outdoors
Yeah.
and
Okay.
and they overlay. I forgot this was the
This
whole
is the whole
point.
point.
Right. So the reason I bring that up is because when you talk about meaning and storytelling and narrative, it's ultimately about what is the whole point, right? So the whole point obviously is that we all have one life, right, to live, and we don't know, how long it's going to be, but I think, all want to make the best of it and want to leave, hopefully, this world better than what we found it. But
That's right.
foresight, let's not forget, is a change management process, right? And ultimately, what we're trying to do, whether you're doing foresight at the governmental level, at the organizational level, individually, with teens, with entrepreneurs, however you're doing it, you're ultimately wanting to create change or help people make decisions and move in a certain direction. It's about movement.
It's about movement.
It's about
Move.
getting alignment, as that article said.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, let's be clear, okay? It's not through data and spreadsheets, right? We know that as long as we've been painting, vignettes on cave walls, we've been telling stories, and stories are what move people. And if we remember what the whole point is to move people, whatever your goal is, whatever your vision is, whether that's organizationally, for your country, for your family, for yourself. We have to remember that it's about making sense, creating meaning, attaching and connecting. And that's going to be through narrative, and that's
And
emergence.
unlocking, it goes right hand in hand with the emergence part. You're
Yeah.
unlocking something from within, not just for healthy individuation, but for collective or coherent emergence. The coherence of, you know, somebody had said in our Dragonfly journey the other day, it's like, this is like jazz. Because a lot of music might be like, and a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But jazz sort of emerges as it goes along. And it's coherence among the musicians that isn't laid out on a sheet of paper somewhere, but they're feeling one another,
Yes.
moving their way through the music is coherence.
Yeah.
And if
Oh,
you
you have to be vulnerable to let that happen.
super vulnerable, open, and humble, humble.
Mm,
This kind of featuring takes a lot of humility, and I think
yeah.
data featuring doesn't take a lot of humility. It says,
No.
"This is the way, walk ye in it,"
Yeah.
And
I get it. It
yes,
eliminates agency. The
it
machine said
eliminates
it.
agency, it eliminates
The data
agency.
said what it said, and
I write
ultimately,
here, algorithmic futures are linear, they're a dead end, and they have no potential inside of them.
yeah. So for the organizations that right now are, making bank, they're counting on AI, they're laying off their people, I do not want to be them in 6 months, 9 months, or a year or more from now when they don't exist, because ultimately organizations are made up of people, and the culture of an organization are going to determine whether it continues to be relevant. Like you talk about relevance, bring it full circle. You want to be relevant, you better make sure that your culture is one of continual learning, unlearning, and
That's
relearning.
right. That's coherence. That's jazz.
Absolutely.
I love that Ramona says, how easy or not do you find to encourage this done. Um, because I wanted to say a moment ago, and then the question comes up here
Hmm.
that lest you think we're just saying a bunch of hooey. We have done this. We have done different kinds of featuring with different clients, but our favorite engagements are when we get to do transformational featuring with clients. And we, over time, learned that we can do it with all of our clients if we're smart.
Yeah.
Because in the early days, we used to be like, here's the 5 trends and and this is what Michelle Shevin and I were talking about on a recent Creating Foresight Fueled Action episode. If you want to go back and see that episode, it's really great. Michelle has laid this out so beautifully how she was working with SRI not long ago, or 10 years ago. That's not that long. And during one of her sessions, she realized that she was just giving trends to a company that were going to implement them and create the future that we didn't want to see. And she was like, this is not futuring. This is not what I want to be doing. And so, lest you think that this is just some pie in the sky theoretical thing, we have done exactly what we're describing today with Amtrak, with Disney, with General Mills. Now, there was I'm not saying it was pure, there was pushback.
Listen, no,
But we, instead of saying,
yeah,
let's just gather trends and say what you should do with these trends to remain relevant, we have transformationally mapped with them, pulling on their higher order purpose,
yeah,
their DNA, talking about the futures they could create rather than the futures that they need to navigate.
yeah,
And I can't even go into all the cool things that we've been able to do, but but like Rod says, it's like flow
yeah.
rather than trying to lay out a predetermined path of somebody else's future.
It's one of the reasons why we're so passionate about the natural foresight framework.
That's it.
We know there's a lot of other ways to sort of do foresight, a lot of other tools, but inherently, the framework, the natural foresight framework, when you follow it as it's intended, and again, it's not a series of steps, it requires you to be intuitive. It requires you to know how to multiply and divide so you can help others add and subtract. But when you are true to that model, there is no or, like, it's not intrinsic, extrinsic, it's all of that,
That's right.
right? It's
Yeah.
all of that. It's a process by which you change the individual's perspectives, because you can't download this into them. You are unlocking it from within them. They already have this capability. It's just dormant. Trust me on that. It's just dormant. And so, yeah, it's like any other consultative experience. You build trust. You need a lot of trust, which is brings us full circle to why we find our approach works. It needs to be genuine for you, but for us, our authentic approach of disarming, being, less, I don't know, like stiff,
Yeah,
um, allows us to build trust with these clients. And that's required because they're going to have to really let go. It's a form of therapy. They're going to have to really let go of stuff that they thought to be true.
that's right.
But if you follow the process itself, foresight does it for you. Like that's the thing. It's not, if you do it the right way, it works. If you're finding it's not working, it's likely it's not foresight. Going back to like how foresight's been sort of re-engineered in some respects, to us, it's not true foresight.
Yeah.
If you're
That I love that you say re-engineered like that, you know. There's this new article out, and it might have come out today or yesterday or the day before, but it's very recent. I do not know the wonderful individual that wrote the article. I don't know her personally. She's like not connected to me on LinkedIn, but Michelle Shevin pointed it out to me today. She goes, "Oh, Frank, you're going to love this article."
mm,
And the article is called F, and it's actually F with the asterisk K, futures thinking.
mm,
And I'm like, oh boy.
mhm.
But the person who wrote it, there was a little bit of clickbait because in the article she never gets that
Yeah.
she actually says, "Look, I actually think futures thinking is important for you. I don't care about it."
Yeah.
And then she does a very fair job of describing what futures thinking is. I'm like, how does she doesn't misunderstand the field, except there was a little bit left out.
Okay.
And so and I wrote her back and I said, like, I really love your article because I think it speaks to the fact that what slight misunderstanding you might have about this field is probably because at large, that's how it's being
Yeah.
practiced. And she's like, I just see, a lot of these people using future thinking, and I think it can be escapism from the problems that we need to deal with right now. And
Hmm.
we need multi-species transformation. And people are like, oh, techno,
Yeah.
AI, and all this stuff. And
That's the danger. It's like,
then she says, I was going to say really
yeah,
quick,
yeah,
then we'll go back to that's the danger.
yeah,
Hold that thought for just a moment. Because she says, I wouldn't say futures thinking is unnecessary because here's the benefits, blah, 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 blah. She said, but we also need participatory co-creation. We need prototyping. And all the things that she named that were a part of the futures
yeah,
field. But she doesn't know. She didn't
yeah.
know it. It's not
And
fair.
that's, and
It'd be
that's,
like me saying like medicine also needs XYZ and it's all
yeah,
about all that.
that's the troubling thing is like
It got co-opted.
we
Yeah,
we try to stay focused because there's so much work to do and not get distracted by, folks that are maybe, commandeering or re-engineering or sort of mislabeling what they're doing as foresight.
that's right.
But it does do damage.
And you said that's the danger?
Yeah, the danger is that it does damage because I think people external to us,
Yeah.
start to perceive it to be a top 10 trend list
Yeah.
or just about tech or just about the metaverse or
Yeah.
just about AI and
And that's another thing I actually liked about our article because, like I said, she did a fair job of saying this is the futures field and this is why it can be important. The reason I don't care is I don't feel like it's addressing our real problems.
yeah,
It's talking about techno supremism and feudalism, blah blah blah, and she's not wrong. A
yeah.
lot of futuring is talking about that and has for a long time. And actually was founded on that. But people like Wendy Schultz years ago wrote that we're in like the fourth wave of futures, which is about complexity and emergence. But that doesn't mean that a lot of people have caught up to that. They're still
Mhm.
talking about futures as data and analysis paralysis and not the co-emergence that it needs to be.
Yeah. So we are closing out our hour here and I just want to, again provide some I think what we said today was pretty practical, but like
Yeah,
some
it is.
so tangible things that we can begin doing.
Hmm.
Um, I think one of the things that we really love to support within Natural Foresight and within TFSX is this idea of everyday foresight. So if we relegate foresight to just a strategic effort or a once a year activity or something that just the C-suite does, it's never going to take shape and really change and transform systems the way we want.
That's right.
And so again, understanding that you're using foresight every day with fueling the decisions, or you should be fueling the decisions that you're making. And there's lots of ways to ensure that you do that. Not only do we have the toolkit online, but we're launching these 30-day challenges. And if you're interested in participating in a 30-day challenge, we have a few kicking off literally the end of this week, beginning of next week. And just email us and we'll put you in touch with some of our hosts that are hosting these 30-day challenges in June. These are going to give you everyday prompts, daily prompts that just take a few minutes to respond to. It's going to provide you a community of individuals going through the same challenge. And we know it takes about 30 days or a month to form a habit.
That's the point. Yeah.
So whether it's you or someone that you care about or a potential client or a current client, that you want them to get some sort of practice under their belt. These 30-day challenges are meant to be open to anyone, even if they have no foresight knowledge. And it's a way to, again, create community, to practice everyday foresight, to build the muscle. And we can get you hooked up. I think the challenge, each challenge is $100 for the 30-day challenge, and it takes place on MyTFSX. And if you're interested in hosting these types of challenges, if you want to energize your network and galvanize them around a challenge like this, please let us know. We have a new group of hosts taking off later this year, and we're already looking for hosts for 2026 as well. So I just wanted to share those two things because I think that when we think about co-creative emergence and we think about participatory foresight, we can do it every day. Like I know it can feel overwhelming or it can feel challenging or annoying that our organizations aren't taking this on. Put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Do a 30-day
Do a
challenge.
30 cha- or
Host a 30-day challenge.
30-day challenge. Or don't forget again that this series of live streams that we're doing is following the course that's at my.tfsx.
Yes, I can
So,
share that real
this course
quick.
called How to Thrive in Uncertain Times is actually talking about these 7 shifts and how
Yes.
to stop looking only at trends and look at the larger ontological process leading shifts that are taking place. As a matter of fact, we have recently, thought that when we're using a tool like causal layered analysis that you might be familiar with, and obviously is at the beginning of every one of these 7 shifts on the maps. That at the bottom, before we go back up and think about new futures, instead of doing sort of a trend presentation, because that can still lock us into today,
Mhm.
it's better to talk about these 7 shifts and then have people think going back up the
Yeah.
CLA, oh, I've got these shifts in mind and not just atomized trends in mind when I'm talking about building different realities.
So before our next live
So do the
stream,
course.
before
Do the
our
course.
next live stream, which Nicole can tell us when that is, next month, I'd encourage you to become a member of the collective, gain access to the course. We're going to be talking about the long now. So the shift to the long now from battling VUCA to embracing the long now. That's going to be the shift for next month.
I'm excited about this one because since we did this podcast, we've had the Alive framework.
Yeah, yeah.
Battling VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
Mhm.
And then we created a different acronym,
Yeah.
ALIVE. I won't say much about it. Come to the next live stream. We'll talk about it a little
So
bit.
June 26th is the next live stream. If you want to be prepared to have a discussion, I would encourage you to listen to the 4 podcasts that we recorded in relation to this topic. And yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much, everyone, for
You
joining.
guys are awesome.
It's been a super fun
Thanks.
live stream. And again, next month, June 26th. I can't believe a month already flew by since the last time we did
Yeah,
this.
by the time we get there, we'll have already had another dragonfly journey.
Yes, that's another reason
And
to
get
join.
practice. So,
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all so very much. I'll play us out and we'll see you next time.
Take care.